So we open the meeting. We've got everybody here. Did you guys have a chance to take a look at the minutes from last month?
Yes,
Okay,
Yep.
I just came about it, what, an hour ago?
about an hour ago, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to, any corrections, changes?
Looks good.
Okay,
Make a
Eric,
motion to,
can you unmute? There you go.
make a motion to accept?
Second?
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I held my finger up, but it didn't work.
You gotta speak, Linda.
I know.
Just talk.
Linda, you're making some progress. The line just went out of your camera. Now it's just a camera without the line in it.
All right. So we have a request for a reserve fund transfer today. Tracy, would you like to talk to that, please?
Certainly. Maggie Malley, who is our current Council on Aging Director, notified us some time ago that she would be retiring. So we started a search. Okay, reserve fund transfer, take two. So as I was saying, our Council on Aging Director is retiring. So we went through the interview process. We had a really great candidate that we were all in agreement we wanted to hire. Went into negotiations at $34,000 a year. We were pretty sure we weren't going to get her to come to Newbury and leave her position. The Human Resources Board had ranked and provides guidance for us and limitations on the high and the low end of the classification schedule. So we did negotiate with the candidate, and it's going to result in us needing another $10,000 for fiscal year 2021. So I'm requesting a reserve fund transfer to go into the Council on Aging salary and wages account of $10,000.
Tracy, who does that hire? Is it? the
I
board?
do.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, but I worked with Chaz Rudich, who is the chairman of the Council on Aging, and also Maggie Malley.
Okay, yeah.
And the job's expanding a little bit. I should also note that we're adding 2 hours a week to the position. As you're probably aware, they're looking for a new location for their senior center.
Yeah.
And obviously with COVID, things have changed. We've gone from more of a physical space, people joining in, to much more of an outreach programming. So they're really going to be doing a lot of review this year about the program and what it's going to look like in the future, as well as all the space needs analysis and the potential for what was previously, a town hall police station design may become a town hall / Council on Aging facility. We don't, we're that's being considered at this point in time. So
How many hours a week?
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was gonna say, how many hours a week is it now, or going to be?
right now it's 30 and it's going to be 32.
Okay, and for the full year, what's the salary gonna be?
50,000, which is still, we did
Yeah,
with the HR board considerably lower than surrounding communities. We usually, when we do our comparative data, we try to stick to Essex County, and we're still quite low.
well, us old folks are worth it.
Yeah.
Right, Marshall?
Well, Gene, having said that, I would look to you to to make a motion to
I'll make
accept
the
this
motion.
transfer. All right. And a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All
The
right.
oldest to the youngest. No, not quite.
So when is this going to take place, Tracy?
She is going to start her employment with the town on the 19th. She will work in concert with Maggie Malley, who's the outgoing director, for about a week. And then she'll take over the reins.
They're still in the round school, right?
They are
Yes.
currently,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
understand Selectman Doyle is serving as the liaison for the Board of Selectmen, and I understand from our last meeting that there was some concern by the council that they were concerned about sharing space at the elementary school, so they
Picking
may
up
want to
from all those kids.
revisit that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, discussions, remarks, questions? Okay. Seeing none, we've got 7 members here. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. And any nays? No, and no abstentions. Okay, we got that part done. As far as last time we had, there was a question on the ClearGov as far as the being able to see transactions was concerned. And-
That's been resolved.
Okay. Okay.
It was a little bit confusing for us because we could see it when we entered, but I guess the public, when they went in, they couldn't see it. So it took us a
Yep.
couple weeks, but they resolved it.
Okay. I did not get the current, well, actually, we had one more question from last time, which was the close of FY 2020, which was due in late September.
Yeah, I thought I had sent that out, but I will double check. I'll resubmit it to you.
Okay.
In general, how did we close out?
We did well. Susan. Eileen is currently working on year-end close. As you can imagine, with COVID and the CARES Act, our focus has been primarily on that. Normally at this point in the fiscal year, we would have already closed our books and be looking towards a free cash certification. We haven't even completely closed. She just finished up encumbrances. So probably by your next meeting, I should have all the final numbers for you to review.
Okay.
But there were no deficits. I'm very happy to report
Good.
that.
Good.
Yeah, and we have received to date about $110,000 in CARES Act grant funding. So
Okay. Well, it's looking, as you mentioned before, looks like we're going to be in pretty good shape for 2021. 2022 is going to be a question depending on how a lot of things go coming down the pike. So is there anything else that we need to cover tonight?
You talking to Tracy?
Talking to anybody.
Oh, okay.
I'll talk to Tracy because basically we start with your report and your.
Right. I'm looking at the agenda, that's all. This financial accessibility, was that the question that she just answered?
Yes.
It's on the agenda, okay.
Yep.
And town hall project, there's no update, I take it.
well, Jeff Shaw, who's the architect for Context, was invited to attend a select board meeting back in August. I think I sent Marshall the date. I don't recall it off the top. Yeah, off the top of my head, but he made a presentation to the board, and it was basically for the newest members of the board to kind of get up to speed on where we were at. And he basically said to them, you know, he had presented 3 proposals relative to the town hall renovation project. And so the members of the board were all going to take a look and refresh themselves with that, and then, you know, with an eye towards getting moving on that project as well. Now that all indications are that the police station is expected to be done at the end of December with a move-in date sometime in February.
Looks really good.
It
Yeah.
looks good. Look, I like it. I like
Yeah.
it.
It's a nice building.
They expect to be done by the end of December.
I was over there last week, and that was what they're saying, but hopefully, you know, almost completed by the end of December, punch list through February, and then moving in February.
Pretty aggressive.
I agreed. Agreed.
It's contractor talk.
It may be.
Add 7 weeks. It's whatever it is plus 7 weeks.
Yeah. That's right, Joe.
But even that would be great, you know?
Well, that's true. That's true. So we had, last time we met, Steve Manchin came up with the question about our unfunded liability, or our liability for pension.
Mhm.
And that was leads to a bunch of things that are coming potentially down the pike. I had put together a package and talked to the selectmen at their last meeting in September about the fact that we have been slowly going backward in funding for the town for quite a long time now. And what we're going to have to look at going forward is how are we going to make up some of these deficits, some of the things that, you know, we've, as I mentioned when I talked to them, we've done a lot of good work. We've saved a lot of money, but at some point you can't save yourself into where you need to be as a town. And so I think that is a subject that we need to take up both with the Capital Planning Committee and with FinCom, and take a longer look at where we are going and how the town is going to be set up for that, because we have this squeeze, and especially if you look at what has happened to the school systems, the squeeze is on us because of the fact that we have almost nothing except taxes from real estate, and that other funding has been going backward, and our obligations have been going forward. And so that's an issue I think we have to put in perspective in the longer term for the town. I think that would be an appropriate thing for this group to do as a project for this coming year. Thoughts?
Or years to come.
Or years to come. But I think establishing that baseline and then taking a look at some of those long-term capital needs plus the long-term operational needs is something that I think this group needs to do to inform, because we report to the town and to the annual town meeting, to give them a clear picture and a perspective of where we've been, where we're going, and what it might take to get there.
I think we talked about it last budget, and I was happy when Tracy said we were adding some money to it to take and try to start in a positive method direction to bring it down. Unfortunately, this year they threw the virus at us, so I think that everything's been put on hold.
Yeah.
But I, for one, would believe that we need to start thinking about, no matter what they say about who may or may not be paying this from the federal side, we got to start thinking about it locally to better manage or to better address it.
Well, I think that's certainly one of the things that we should take a look at, and how we can address what we have as our real needs going forward, and what those look like. And of course, it's always a contest as to how this funding is going to come into the town, where it's going to come from.
Now, what is the status of the master plan with respect to, obviously, one way to do this is increasing the tax base, but I haven't seen anything.
I can talk that a little bit, because the master plan work basically went on hold because we lost the guy who was the spark.
Oh, yeah.
plug.
Merrimack Valley planning, the guy
Yeah.
from Merrimack Valley planning.
John Weiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're, okay.
And so I think what we need to do from the town's point of view is re-energize that. And I'm looking for that for calendar year 2021. So starting in January, to start up the master plan group again. We've gotten a lot of good work done, but we have to pull it together and finish it up. And that's a perfect place to take a look at those long-term pieces, and if we can, in fact, increase the amount of the tax base.
Which in and of itself will require probably some substantial capital investment on our part.
That's true.
Maybe.
It would, but a lot of those capital investments, because we've seen them in other towns.
I'm talking infrastructure.
Yep, infrastructure stuff. There's money for that, so that we don't have to do the whole thing ourselves. But that's one of the things that we have to look at.
We should have a pretty good handle on our capital costs projected out, I would think.
We do in many of
With the exception of the town hall. I mean, there's every department created those, look aheads, what, 5 years, 10 years? In
we've
terms
got
of the
5s
capital.
and 10s, yes.
Mhm.
We need to apply dollars to that and get a sense.
But that town hall is a big exception.
Right. Oh, yeah, I know. I said that. But,
And knowing the timeline to get votes for a town hall project and then any other massive infrastructure
right.
expenses.
Yeah. And
It put us 10 years before we got a positive, between the two. I think we can have a plan, but I think both of those will be challenging for people to levy their ideas of what they're willing to pay today to pave the way for future improvements.
Right.
It's always a really hard.
I think what's
Not.
going to have to happen is that we are going to have to start looking outside of the town for some funding, because that outside funding has been steadily decreasing over the years, and we have to get that going the other way if we're in fact going to make some of these things happen without overburdening the people who live here.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question? Just maybe I'm missing something. So we're looking to increase spending for infrastructure to drive what?
Well, not necessarily if we have to. I mean, but how do you increase your tax base? usually through commercial and industrial.
Yeah, I guess
And
that's,
we're at a deficit without our own water in most of the town or sewage treatment. Those are the big ones that make it difficult to offer up a place for development.
Yeah,
So it's a hard to be a competitive. And also, I remember one of the last times we looked at this, that the other thing was also looking at all of, kind of the competition. So it's not just what can Newbury do to boost Newbury, but what is Newbury competing against if someone can locate in, closer to a rail line or closer to the, we're well positioned for a lot of things, but not perfect. So who are our competitors on that side of it in terms of, is Ipswich more attractive to put, if you're going to open a small manufacturing, or if you're going to open a new larger retailer, would our town approve what type of business would be trying to attract, and how do we attract that type of business if we had the infrastructure to support it?
yeah, it's good points. Have we ever actually run a competitive analysis on basically saying, like, can we bring in business? Can we bring in, schools? How are we positioned from a school base? How are we positioned from this? And then we can basically, that will help us really define our master plan. And then based on that master plan, we can back into the potential revenues that we can actually accrue for the town. Because if we're going to be, just take schools as a ranking, if our schools aren't going to be ranked and we're less competitive within the school rankings, and that's going to drive more people to move to West Newbury because they have a better school system, and then we don't have the infrastructure to support commercial, eventually we're going to have to come to terms with, we are who we are, and we're going to have to work within those means. I could be wrong, but that's all I'm trying to identify, because I feel like we've been, since, just hearing from the town, living in the town, and obviously then being on finance committee, talking about master plans, we've never really, and sometimes I think we have an identity crisis within the town of who we want to be and who we are.
yeah.
And we're trying to figure that out, it seems, at a lot of times.
You're exactly right. And that's what the master plan is for.
Right.
If you can get as many people as possible into the master plan, one, and two, as much data into the master plan, then you have some basis to figure that out. And there are consequences for each path that somebody proposes to take. And the work of the master plan committee is to put some numbers and some timelines and some comparables to those from other surrounding towns to see how they have done and what it has meant for them. So the master plan group is the right place to do that. And we've got a good start on it. We have to finish up a bunch of stuff that has sort of dropped through the hole. So I think getting that back on track and going forward in January would be a really good use of our time.
And was there a committee? I remember this. Is there a master plan committee? And if so, who's the chair? Do we know?
The chair now is, I think it's Martha, isn't it? It was John Weiss, and then he left. And Martha, God bless her, has been stuck with that along with every other duty that she has. And so we probably would have to look at restructuring that so that we have somebody who actually has some time to do that.
And do we have select members as well, or I thought
there were no selectmen on that committee when we last met.
That was a while ago too, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Now, I thought you were working with somebody from Merrimack Valley Planning.
Tracy, you want to take that one?
I know they've had various consultants throughout the process, and they do have They've hired different people to gather data for them, like what you were talking about, KV. Statistical data on schools and build out projections and that type of information. So they're working with various consultants. I'm not sure if MVPC is one of them. They may very well be.
It was.
Yeah.
I thought we did I thought there was a citizen survey at some
There
point.
was a.
It was.
I'm like, I'm remembering this.
That was
I-
Probably
years
changed.
ago.
Tracy, I just think that that's from a consultant perspective, right? You know, allocating some money to that and then getting the data, and then those consultants will essentially drive and say, look, based on all of these factors, here are your potential like outcomes. Option A, B, C, D, whatever it may be. And then that gives us a better alignment to where we can position ourselves and where we can go. I just think that's
Agreed.
dollars well spent.
Yeah.
And there were some studies that we had identified that would take some money that did not come before town meeting, but would have to come before town meeting to flush out those different scenarios. We talked to, for instance, people who were talking about what does it take even to do a study for infrastructure in the town of Newbury. And so, yeah, we've got some of that initially started and some firms identified so that we can go and get some of that information.
There has to be some political will behind it too.
So when you say that, what is that? Does that mean like the
Well,
elect men and women, people, I guess.
you can talk about it, but somebody has to, and I think the select board should be the drivers. And we tend here to react to situations instead of being proactive and anticipate what's going,
So I guess, why don't we have a meeting?
By the time we react, we've missed the boat. So we have things to catch up, or, the police station, the town hall is a good example of that, in my opinion. We would have had all of that for less money if the town had moved and there was the political will to do that. They didn't.
Right.
Pardon me?
Right. It took,
I don't know how many years it's been.
it took
10 or 15.
15.
Yeah, probably 15 from start, but yeah, it was, from the time that we were back at the town hall having those meetings, the price tag was half of what we're, because
So Tracy-
it took 7 years from then till now.
Yeah, I guess Tracy and Marshall, do we say we have some of these numbers? My guess is if we have a number for a consultant to come up with this, consultants will give you a number, right? Like you can call a consultant and say, hey, this is what we're doing, and they'll give you an estimate of that.
Yeah.
If we get an estimate, why don't we just put some time on the calendars and say, of the selectmen or select people, and say, hey, we want to present this to you. We think this is a good use of dollars. This gets us to help us identify, future states. And by the way, I think it's a good transparency to show at our next town meeting that here's what we're trying to accomplish, to show full transparency of the potential outcomes based on what we can be. Let's talk about where we want to go as a community.
Proactive approach.
Yeah, I mean, let's just attack it.
I think part of what the master planning committee is doing is they take the data that we get from the consultants, and then they try to reconcile that with the feedback that they've gotten from the residents. So
Yeah.
what the data drives and what we can be versus what the majority of the information that's come back from
Sure.
the residents want. And they try to reconcile that together and then come out with their final report. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with just looking at the numbers, especially for the finance committee to kind of take the lead on that for sure.
Yeah, it's the idea of, do we, is it does what it says is like, hey, you know, maybe, you know, this is, I'm just completely like making this up, but it might be like, oh, what would really benefit Newbury would be to have, you know, a small, you know, like what they're building the Newburyport train station, like, you know, small apartments that would have multiple families. And then, you know, because then that would grow people into like actually like keeping their kids in the school district, and then they'll buy the single family homes after they've rented here first. Like that might be one plan, but then you might hear somebody who's like, oh, then we might have a huge groundswell of like, we don't want that building. And it goes, we can kind of people get fixated on that one project. It starts to then get strange. Or it could be, okay, yeah, we can be industrial, but we have to spend $4 million in order to attract somebody to come here. And then if that one falls through, what happens? So it gets really hard. And there are so many different views of what the town wants to be or who we think we are.
Yeah.
And kind of getting that, what we call, in my industry, we call, you know, kind of listening, customer driven insights. It's let's hear from the town people what they think are the problems. And then how do we go about solving it in a way that is consistent with something that will actually get them to buy in and buy into our product. And that product being the town, and making it something that they're then feel a vested interest in supporting and moving forward with. So it's a bit of numbers, a bit of PR, and a bit of who's driving the train and why. Because we also have, there's a lot of skeptics out there right now that anybody's willingness to do it, and what's their motive for wanting, like, they have something to do with that development, like that's going to be, so there's always all those different layers to it. But I think it would be interesting to see what people think they want the town to be and what they envision it.
I look at it this way. We have to, I feel as though it's better to start the conversation and say, if we stay within the exact course and nothing changes, here is the dollars and here are the costs that are coming in. We're just not going to survive.
That's
so
right.
So we can continue this course, and here are the outcomes. And I'll give you a 3, a 5, and a 10-year projection based on doing nothing. Or we can go option A, option B, option C. Either way, we don't have to, you can do nothing, but if you do nothing, this is your outcome. I think that like eventually everybody in town is going to have to face that reality. And look, I grew up in town. I've been here for a long time. And the reality is, like, I know the people that don't want it to change and don't want their taxes to go up and all of those things. But doing nothing leads to death. Not moving leads to death. And so, guys, it's like we can do nothing and you will end up, it's not for you, it's for the next generation. So it's a choice. And I think we have to offer them that choice at a minimum. Otherwise, my personal view, and I think we've talked about this, from a finance committee, I think it's our responsibility to take that stance and go to the Board of Selectmen at a minimum and say, hey, here's how much it would cost to create this. Here's the right paths that you have to take. And here's the outcomes that based on the monetary or financials. You make your call. You either choose to put it in front of the people or you don't. But at a minimum, we've made our presentation to you. Just full transparency. I think I would vote to go get the consultant, at least at a minimum. How much is it going to cost?
Well, I think when we reconstitute this in January, we'll go back and see what we already have done, because we do have a fair amount done. But the thing that is not done, and you identified it very well, Katie, is to put put the money on it. 2, and this is one of the other things, is look at how some of that financing has been done in other towns, because a lot of the financing that has been done in other towns was from state or federal funds that were available just for these things. And the Merrimack Valley Planning group did some pretty good work in identifying towns that had changes, had infrastructure building, and was able to get some pretty substantial money to help that help that through. So, but I agree with you. As a presentation, finance committee should be part and parcel, if not lead on on basically the scenarios of A, B, C, D. Here's what they are. Here's what the changes would be in the town, and this is where the money would come from. And
Yeah.
you know, not changing or not moving is always one option, and we've seen what has happened when we've done that option.
Well, yeah. Look at the golf center. And I know nothing about it, but I think the guy is probably broke trying to meet the needs of the town before he got even open. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's hard to do business here. Let's just be clear. We're not revenue focused in some ways, and what it is what it is. Look, I had my own issues within the town, but we don't. There's a lot of politics. I get it. There's a lot of politics.
Yeah.
But hopefully the economics of and showing the outcomes of what we need to do at the end of the day, I will defer to the data, and you have to let them. And that's where you let the people make the decision based on the data.
Yeah.
There are two things, KV, you need. One is the data, but two, you need a champion. You need somebody who's going to get up there and say, here's the data. What's the picture? What's the vision? If you don't have somebody who has the vision, then what you'll get, and we've seen it here before, is people who say, well, not in my backyard, you're not going to do that.
Nope. Oh, tell me about it. I've had plenty of that. But
I've had it, you know,
and we have all had it. But
Yep.
so I look at it this way: is like, because to your point, if we let's start here. If we as a group can identify the option that we think is the right option for our town, then let's lead the role of that champion to say, here's why we think this is a benefit. And it might not be fully industrial. It might not be stay the way we are, but maybe it's like, hey, we want 10% of our community to be industrial because this is going to bring in X percent over the next 10 years. And it's no different than looked at my land and said, I have an X amount of acres. If I do X percent and put the rest into conservation, the 10% that I'm using to preserve the 90%, there's a cost benefit. It's beneficial in the long run to meet the objectives of what we were trying to do. And I think that's what we have to say. And then if we are the champions, I'll sell that all day. I think you would sell that all day. And that's where we sell to the select board. And then from there, we get them to be champions. And then we work our way, and we can just work our way through this as to why. That's how I look at this. But you guys have been doing this a lot longer than me. So
Well, we've talked about it.
I know.
But you're suggesting we take a step. And the consultants that we've used haven't been for this committee. They've been primarily for Merrimack Valley Planning Committee. Right, Tracy?
That's correct.
Hello? Yes? Tracy?
Yeah.
We've used Merrimack Valley Planning Committee
Right.
for some of the consulting.
Right. Do you have a picture of what we're talking about?
I do, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Now, I think what Kavey's suggesting is, how do we find a person who can come and do that for us? And where do we find them? We don't do that. Somebody has to do that. And it probably falls in your lap.
No, I think the Master Planning Committee is already actively engaged. A lot of that data has already been gathered. I don't know.
Where is it?
I know MVPC. It would be issued with their entire report, which I do believe was stalled. I don't know when,
Yeah.
probably when John Weiss left, but
Yep, it was.
certainly, you know, through the last couple of months. But I can certainly contact Martha and find out where it is and, you know, what the
She's been
projections
tied
are.
up with the golf course or the golf.
Well, you know, we
I'm
you
so, I
gotta
don't,
remember, respectfully, no, you're absolutely right, Gene. I mean, between the golf course and the other issues, the 40B that we're all dealing with,
right.
there's, and COVID, there is a backlog, and Martha is a one-man show. We did get
Yeah.
some additional administrative support for her last year, I think a little over 10 hours. But, you know, we've got small.
Tracy, I think you would agree. We have a resource issue.
Yeah.
Right? We just don't have the resources to do this. So
Right.
if we're gonna get it done, I think,
Outsource it.
yeah, we gotta outsource it. Outsource it, pay someone to do it, figure out the costs, and
Yep.
let's just move the ball down the field.
Yep.
That's my
I
take.
agree. I agreed completely.
So
see if
how do
we
we-
can find out who that person is.
Let me reach out to Martha
Or
and
Martha, maybe.
sit down with her and find out where everything sits and bring that back to our next meeting. How's that sound?
works for me.
Yeah. This is going to be one of our longer meetings, Marshall, since you.
Okay,
Anything more?
okay. Anything else? No?
Nope.
Linda?
Me.
I'm shaking my head
I
no,
can't
but
see you shake your head. All right.
The only other thing that you had on your agenda was special town meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we don't have any reason to have a special town meeting. And so we're not going to call for one.
Okay.
And our next meeting will be, what's that going to be?
November 3rd?
No,
Election day? No.
I don't think that's,
Oh,
God,
yeah.
no.
November 10th, I think.
that's a bit of time.
That's the same night as the selectmen's meeting, just so you know.
Yep, I
That's fine.
think we'll just do both on the same night
Okay.
and okay.
Election night runs for 7 days this year.
Oh, yeah,
Mm.
or longer.
Yeah.
Is the select board meeting in person?
No, they are not.
Okay.
No,
School committee's still remote.
everybody's remote.
Everybody's remote.
Yep.
Yay.
And we haven't been, this board hasn't been called into school committee to weigh in by crazy parents, but
Well,
yes.
So Marshall, November 10th is the meeting.
November 10th, 7 o'clock, we'll do another Zoom meeting and I'll have some, what I'll do is try and get some information out to everyone from Martha as the present status of the work that has been done on the master plan.
who sets up the Zoom meeting? Do you, Marshall, or does the town?
I had set it up with Tracy and the town as, with Tracy and
Co-host.
as co-host.
Co-host?
And
Because you can do, what you need to do is not, can't do what you just did is, they can do it so that nobody can get in unless they're invited, right?
yes,
That's how I do.
That's
I
what-
can set it up for you in the future if you want,
Okay.
Marshall. I'm happy to do that.
Okay,
Whatever you need, just let me know.
I'll do that. Okay,
Hopefully by our next meeting, Juan will have figured out why my camera doesn't work.
Find the camera,
We've already
find the
figured it
camera
out.
icon and turn it on.
I'm
Linda, we figured
afraid
out
to
it's
touch
you.
it.
You need an IT consultant, Linda.
Oh, boy. All right.
all right, folks, what do you think?
Make a motion?
Oh,
Let's have a motion. Motion,
Make a
motion,
dude.
okay, all in second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. See you guys.
Night. Bye,
Good night.
guys.
I guess.